Anyway, so yeah, welcome everyone to this conversation with Adam and Manish. This is Anand. I'm going to be the host of this session, and then we will have a conversation. So, just to introduce you to Adam, Adam works as National Engagement Director at Intelligent and is the founder of Mastering Snowflake. He's a Snowflake expert and has helped thousands of professionals in their Snowflake data cloud journey. He's the author of one of the most popular books, Mastering Snowflake Solutions. With an urge to give back, he is donating 100% of the royalties received to the Black Dog Institute. Adam also runs an exclusive training program to train professionals on Snowflake. The program does not just cover the theory, but takes a hands-on approach by taking deep dive into the complex real-world challenges of data in the modern age. Welcome, Adam, to this conversation.
That's great. Thanks so much for the kind intro, and great to be here, Adnan and Manish, and looking forward to the conversation we're going to have today.
Thanks, Adam. And we also have Manish. Manish is a co-founder of Atgeir Solutions, a technology services and solutions company which focuses on data and cloud solutions for the enterprise customers. Manish is the author of 3 books. In his current role at Atgeir Solutions, responsible for product strategy, engineering, and intellectual property development. Manish has developed a couple of products which are natively available in Snowflake Marketplace and working on the 3rd product as we speak. Manish, welcome to this conversation.
Thanks, Anand, and hi, Adam. It's
Hi,
privileged here.
Alrighty, so Adam and Manish, once again, welcome to this interactive session. Today, we'll talk specifically about your experience and expertise with Snowflake Data Cloud. As we all know, Snowflake has emerged as a single global platform that powers the data cloud. And Snowflake is uniquely designed, as you know, to connect businesses globally across any type or scale of data and many different workloads and unlock seamless data collaboration. I think that is very important. And this is one platform with near unlimited potential, as evident by the traction and adoption of Snowflake by the enterprise customer over past several years. So Adam, I would like to start with you. How does Snowflake differentiate itself from other data cloud solutions in the market?
Yeah, great question. And I think one of the reasons why I am personally attracted to Snowflake is because its ease of use and its simplicity to get started and up and running compared to some of the other competitors. So in this day and age, people's expectations are changing all of the time. They're expecting to get insights and data at their fingertips far more rapidly than ever before. And that's not going to change. It's only something that's going to increase, essentially. So in my role, when I go in and try to help clients, my kind of objective is to add business value and to do that in the shortest amount of time. So Snowflake is one of those kind of tools that allows you straight out of the box to get going with some competent SQL skills, which are obviously pretty much abundant in the market. Limited configuration is required to start getting data into there and to start leveraging that data for insights and generating insights. So the way that you can get up and running very quickly to actually help a business out by generating insights and therefore adding value, for me, is a big game changer around that. And it levels the playing field, around on the market itself. And finally, I think my final point would be around that kind of credit consumption model, which is now very much normalized. But in the past, obviously, it really limited the amount of startup and smaller companies that were able to kind of get into this arena. They had to kind of pay a lot of money up front, take a lot of risk, and purchase a physical machine, if you remember those days. That's all gone now, because they can literally get into Snowflake at a very low cost, and it could actually go as pay as you go from the outset, which lowers that barrier to entry, which is really important to the adoption and use of Snowflake globally.
Yeah. I think that's a great perspective. And then the limited or absolutely no barrier to entry is, I think, one of the key characteristics. So with respect to your experience so far, would you like to highlight specific examples where the clients have realized some of those benefits? Probably you may not be able to take some names of clients, but would you like to, specifically talk about a few examples?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the first one that springs to mind immediately is around the data marketplace and being able to share data far more easily and efficiently than ever before. So, you know, a lot of my clients have historically have to rely on moving files across the network, typically using SFTP and file transfer mechanisms. The introduction of Snowflakes to them and their partners have changed the paradigm, you know, completely. So they are now able to seamlessly share data with no data latency, no data movement. And when you describe this to clients from the outset, you know, they almost feel it's too good to be true because they just can't imagine a world where all of that complexity and overhead and risk just goes away. But it is a reality, right? And I think that once clients see that and they're able to share data with their customers and remove a lot of those inherent risks with outdated practices now, that is certainly a big game changer and a significant advantage for being able to get the hands on the data moving into Snowflake from an ingestion perspective. The other side of the coin with the same kind of area around the marketplace and the data cloud itself is being able to generate new revenue streams by monetizing existing data clients have. Really exciting here at the moment. There's a lot of clients who are just starting to discover the potential of that here in Australia. So they've got valuable data. They may already have a client base who are using some of that data at the moment, but the nature and mechanism to share it isn't as slick as they would like. Now they're in a position with Snowflake where they can either share that data using reader accounts for non-Snowflake customers. It's not limited to everybody having Snowflake. Obviously, that experience is far better and much more enabled if both parties have Snowflake. But that ability to share data and generate new revenue streams, making that process as seamless and slick as possible, very exciting. And I've seen customers kind of use that to develop new products, which is what we're starting to see now. So on that maturity curve, you know, you've got we just need our data in one place to be able to process it effectively with a nice balance between cost and performance, which Snowflake just offers out of the box. That's been there for a long time, right? But as you move up that maturity curve, you've got the advanced analytics piece, then you've got the development of new products to generate new revenue streams. Really exciting and gets a lot of people certainly interested in how they can do that. I guess one other aspect I'll just throw in there, Adnan, for now, and then we can always add some more in later. But the fact is that Snowflake can run on multi-clouds, multi-regions, right? And some of the clients I work with have data that resides on maybe AWS and Microsoft Azure because of, you know, let's say they've made acquisitions in the past. So they've ended up with like a multitude of systems, different cloud providers, and they need a way of bringing it all together. Snowflake's ideally placed for that because it can just run, look and feel the same regardless of the underlying cloud provider, whether that be Microsoft, Google, or Amazon. Bring that data seamlessly together and remove a lot of the redundant and manual processes that exist in the business. So again, Snowflake's ideally positioned in that way to bring that data together for those clients in that position.
Thanks, Adam, for that. And then specifically when it comes to data sharing or, you know, ultimately sharing the application code, do you get any questions with regards to the security of data or how to protect it? While Snowflake has all the safeguards in place, do you get those kinds of questions from your customers that you're speaking to?
Yeah, absolutely, all of the time. You know, especially for those customers who are moving from an on-premise environment to the cloud, there's still that kind of fear factor there. And obviously with data breaches making the news quite frequently, or more frequently than any of us would want, there's still a lot of scrutiny around do we have the right security mechanisms in place? How secure are they? And how do we best ensure that our data assets are protected? Often that is the longest part of any kind of cycle when we're working with the customers who are interested in Snowflake, want to procure Snowflake, but they need to do the due diligence and work with the InfoSec security teams to kind of appease that approach. So, you know, ultimately Snowflake is, as you know, is very credible in terms of that, such as they've got certain regulatory standards like PCI DSS and so on. That's there, and you know, Snowflake can really kind of provide the evidence behind that, which makes that kind of transition a little bit more easier. But you've still got to put a lot of upfront thinking into the design of how you're going to interact with different cloud storage buckets and so on, and potentially then how users will access the data within Snowflake as well. And there's various ways of doing that, some much weaker and some much stronger than others.
Right. Okay, so pretty exciting, the way Snowflake is positioning itself in the market. So Adam, based on your general experience overall working with the global customers and customers in Australia specifically, how is the overall traction and adoption of Snowflake?
Very good here. So I can't, obviously you can talk more for the Indian and the US market specifically. But here in Australia, they're a little bit behind the US and UK and Europe traditionally. But what I see now is it feels like sort of how it did do in 2017, 2018 in the UK right now here in Australia. Snowflake's obviously matured as a tool set and broadened its capabilities during those years as well. So it's became more comprehensive in terms of the solution. And there's more well-established customers and patterns to go along with that. That to me is all kind of a potent mix of advantageous kind of timing for Australia, because now as people start to wake up to the fact that Snowflake's coming into the market, they can quickly take advantage and accelerate their implementations. Whereas previously, when Snowflake was a little bit more immature back in 2017, 2018, when I started working with it, that process wasn't as slick or streamlined as it is today, right? So I don't see anything with regards to the recent economic climate slowing things down. The worst I've seen is customers maybe deferring financial purchasing decisions until a new financial year, which is here the 1st of July. But other than that, I see more than ever lots of interest and lots of excitement about Snowflake as a product and where it can go next.
Yeah. And Adam, I would like to say, you are one of the early adopters. In at least in your region, certainly, and taken a lot of strides, in making sure the community is also aware of it. So specifically talking about your Mastering Snowflake program, would you like to talk about it and how you have been able to upskill a lot of professional developer community with Snowflake?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to mention it, Adnan, because I think when I came to use Snowflake in 2017, prior to that, I'd had a lot of experience in data and analytics solutions and working with relational databases such as SQL Server and Oracle and Teradata and all those ones that we'd be familiar with. But I was kind of, I saw the cloud technologies taken off at the time. I was very keen and intrigued to get into that. But it was loads of buzzwords and marketing hype around that. You kind of didn't really know where to start. Now, I was fortunate enough to get onto a project, like I mentioned, in 2017 in the UK with Snowflake, and it was like day and night for me, moving from those traditional on-premise legacy systems to Snowflake. And as I mentioned earlier, the ease of entry and to get going with Snowflake was just a game changer for me. So that kind of initially piqued my interest and kind of brought me into that kind of cloud arena through Snowflake, essentially. Fast forward to kind of now, I've done obviously several implementations of that for lots of customers, big and small, various different industries. And over that time, I've kind of learned through time and effort what works and what doesn't, right? And making those mistakes and kind of understanding, all right, okay, there's a better approach to that, developing and evolving that. So today now I've kind of got a packaged up set of recipes or formulas, if you like, that really work well with Snowflake and have been proven in the field. So I was kind of aiming, I aim a lot of the material I do, whether that be books or the Mastering Snowflake program, or the YouTube channel that I've got, for example, to help the community for those people who are in that place who feel as though they're stuck in a dead end kind of career and they need to enhance their career prospects by moving into the cloud data analytics arena. I use Snowflake as the vehicle to take them from where they are today to where they could potentially get to and kind of help them with their career prospects. So the Mastering Snowflake and the book and all of the other stuff kind of came out of that to try to find a way to give back to the community in some shape or form to help accelerate and provide that proven roadmap by somebody that's been there and done it before to almost kind of handhold those people through that process to get them to the point as quickly as possible where they could have a transformational experience. This isn't just a case of just reading some theory online and then trying it out yourself. Those people will get there, but it will take them that much longer. What I try to do is what I couldn't find, and I still don't think it's that easy to find today, is real world practical advice of how you take Snowflake's out of the box capabilities, package them up to address real world business challenges and apply that skill and experience tomorrow. And that's essentially what I try to do in terms of the Mastering Snowflake program.
Oh, wonderful. And then this giving back to community, I think, works a great deal in favor of, the adoption of Snowflake, as well as, getting people up to scale, as well as I think you are also donating to charity. Do you want to briefly speak about what you are doing and what it is about?
Yeah, look, I guess it's just part of the core kind of values that the Mastering Snowflake brand operates around, is around giving back to the community, whether that's helping people from where they are today to get into a new career, or helping people that are disadvantaged or not as privileged as we are today. So any opportunity that we get to give back, we try to do that in a number of different ways. The book itself, as you mentioned, all the royalties I get from my first book, the Mastering Snowflake book behind me, that 100% of that goes to the Black Dog Institute. The more recent book I published around the SnowPro Core Certification Study Guide, a large proportion of the donations of that as well go to another charity called Beyond Blue in Australia as well. So wherever possible, we try to give back to the community, because for us, that's our kind of a key tenet of everything that we do, in the foundation and cornerstone for what we want to be known for, and how we want to help our members as well. Great.
Okay, I think next set of questions I'm going to ask to both of you. So starting with you, Manish, looking ahead, as we all know, Snowflake Summit is around the corner, happening in June. What are some of the announcements you are anticipating in the Snowflake Summit later in June, Manish?
Right. Thanks, Anand. Thanks for that question. So one of the important thing that I am anticipating is announcements around the public preview of native apps. Now, as we know that Snowflake has started as an SQL data warehouse on cloud. Now they are moving towards being a data cloud where you can run data apps using the Snowflake infrastructure itself. Now with that, native app comes as a very important perspective because it is going to help you build your entire business logic using Snowflake data, using Snowflake infrastructure within the Snowflake boundaries itself. And that is one of the most important thing I believe is going to be there with Snowflake, and it is going to be a great game changer because you don't have to go anywhere. You just have to build everything in the same Snowflake environment and deploy it there as per the client's requirement. And you don't have to like move data from here to there. You don't have to use a multitude of technologies. You just have to focus on Snowflake Data Cloud. The other thing in line of that only, apart from a lot of support is going to come around Python. Now they have introduced Python worksheets. So I'm assuming there would be a lot of other aspects that they are going to announce around Python, including Streamlit. Right now they have made Streamlit in private preview and as a native app version 2 package component as well. But their focus is going to be more on enhancing Streamlit and the whatever features that original or the native Streamlit provides. As they are integrating it with Snowflake, they want to enhance those features as well. So I see these two areas where most of the announcements are going to be, and I firmly believe that native apps is going to be a game changer.
Nice. So Adam, your take, what are you expecting from the Snowflake Summit?
Yeah, so I think other than the areas that Manish has mentioned, because again, the native apps framework is stuff that people have heard about, but those people that don't have access to it really want that next level of detail. And then moving Streamlit into Snowflake properly to have that native experience is going to be far better, especially for non-Python users like me, who when I have a little play with Streamlit, it's very difficult then to work out how do I deploy my code of all the libraries and dependencies. To wrap that up in the Snowflake environment is going to make things a lot easier for people who are coming from a non-kind of Python background. Just moving on to the things I'm really interested in, and the things that I see my community are really excited about is Snowpipe streaming and dynamic tables. So the ability now to simplify your data pipelines by declaratively, creating a create table statement effectively with a refresh rate without needing to stage the data on the way in. Not only does that remove a lot of the typical kind of complexity and objects that you would need at the moment in Snowflake, because you would need to be able to have streams and tasks to capture those changes and tasks to orchestrate that. To remove all of that and just to have a simpler way to transform data without having to manage the streams and tasks. With dynamic tables, having an auto refresh rate. That for me presents a really great opportunity for those smaller organizations that may not necessarily have a dedicated ETL/ELT tool today, because some clients I work with are at the smaller end of the arena with small teams, smaller budgets. They've got Snowflake, they love it, but they also have a need to transform and orchestrate data effectively and simply. And I think that is one area where any improvements, and certainly the ones I've seen so far in private preview, are looking really good for those kind of clients.
Nice. Okay. One of the key aspects or considerations is, optimizing the cost, or, governing the overall consumption, that goes with, pay-per-use strategy. So, Manish, what are some of the, instances or experiences where you have seen, client have encountered unwarranted costs? Do you have any examples to share?
Yeah, sure. So as Adam mentioned earlier as well, Snowflake is pretty much easy to use, and they have a pretty strong, good features in place with the simple usage scenarios or with simple usage syntax, I would say, which could be interpretable to any non-programmer or non-Python, I would say, users as well. So it is purely based on SQL. So if you understand SQLs, then you would be able to use most of the Snowflake features, which is relying on data pipelines and all other features as well. But the key here is that with that simplicity, there comes a cost as well. And people tend to move towards more towards simplicity of the usage rather than thinking about, okay, if I'm using this command 5 times, is it costing me more? Or if I use this command 1 time, is it costing me less? So those kind of thinking is where I have seen client is getting carried away with the simplicity of Snowflake, but bringing the cost into the picture. Like for example, with one of our clients, so as we know, with the Snowflake pay-per-use model, especially around the warehouses, if you restart a warehouse for first 1 minute, they charge it full after the restart, and then after 1 minute, the per second billing starts. I've seen a client like within 24 hours, they have restarted their applications for more for not the application, the warehouse, for more than 6,000 times. So that means they are recurring the double billing, because what happens, like within 1 minute you are actually restarting your warehouse 2-3 times. So that means you are paying for 2-3 minutes for 1 minute of the usage. So I mean, Snowflake has given you a lot of good features. Snowflake has given you flexibility to control your cost, but you should know where to control it and how to control it. And that is where I see the governance piece should be brought in, so that it's a win-win scenarios for everybody.
Thanks, Manish, for sharing that example. Adam, do you have some of those instances or examples to share?
Yeah, I do. And I guess just to build on Manish's good point around Snowflake's really easy to use, which is a blessing and a curse, because people can get going very quickly. When you've got 5-10 users and small amounts of data, that might be okay. But if you fast forward a year down the line and you follow those same bad practices or practices which are inherent from the on-prem world to the cloud kind of consumption model, it doesn't kind of make sense, especially when you're talking hundreds of users and terabytes upon terabytes of data. It's a different mindset completely. Some of the things I see, Manish mentioned in terms of the auto suspend time around virtual warehouses. And let's be clear, there's kind of two main areas where you're going to spend credits in terms of virtual warehouse, or in terms of Snowflake, sorry. So one is around the virtual warehouses, yeah, and one is around the kind of query processing. And they're kind of two elements that you could almost take. There's some correlation between them, and obviously they rely on each other. but you can also take them independently. So, just the basic things like choosing a sensible virtual warehouse size. If people aren't educated on how that size and how the duration that warehouse is running for, that correlation between that and the credits consumed, which ultimately is a dollar monetary amount, people don't necessarily have the right education when they get going, and can have virtual warehouses too large, over provisioned, and they'll just automatically think bigger is better and queries will run faster, right? But it's not linear in every single case, and that benefit will fall away at some stage. I think some of the other ones, and just to throw out there in terms of quick and short, sharp, helpful hints, because I see these kind of things quite a lot. I see people bringing data in from an external stage, from cloud storage locations such as Amazon S3. I see people not necessarily thinking about taking large files and breaking them into smaller ones to make use of Snowflake's automatic parallel execution. That's a very frequent one I see, because that's largely invisible to the end users. It's very hard to know that just by looking at the metrics that you're getting. I think also making use of multi-cluster warehouses as well, again, to open the door for parallel processing of things like transformation jobs. And working hand in hand in that, there was the cache-in, right? So, starting and stopping the virtual warehouse very frequently, like Manish mentioned, obviously you get billed for the first 60 seconds, but also if you've got no virtual warehouses running in your environment, you lose a lot of the cache. So that's the SSD cache on the virtual warehouses, as well as the results cache, right? So if you've got a lot of business intelligence dashboards such as Tableau, Power BI, they will frequently execute the same query throughout a business day. They won't be able to take advantage of the cache. So we'll need to use a virtual warehouse every time to go and retrieve the data. That's cost, that's performance, and that's going to hurt you as well. The final one I was going to mention, and this is one I see very commonly overlooked, and I'm sure you guys would as well, right? So every virtual warehouse that you have has a statement timeout in seconds. The default of that is 2 days. People don't even know that exists. So if you've got a user on a Friday night, starts a query, goes home for the weekend, if nobody's monitoring that, that will run and consume a huge amount of credits potentially before Snowflake will decide to kill that query off by default. So again, looking at that, bringing that down as part of a governance process around your virtual warehouses and your Snowflake environment, it would be really advantageous.
Yeah. I think that tells me that, a key success criteria is to be able to govern your costs on an ongoing basis. You can actually put some of the safeguards in place, and you may not want to forget about it. You want to constantly keep doing that. So towards that, Manish, what are some of the best practices in optimizing the costs, and how you have dealt with those with your product, Costnomics? What would you like to elaborate on those?
Yeah. So Adam rightly mentioned is that performance and the cost goes hand in hand. But there is not that everything that you increase the compute capacity is always result in improving the performance. And that's where you have to strike a balance, like how much cost you want to incur and how much performance or the SLA you want to achieve. So with that, I think the cost optimization, as I mentioned, is around these tweakings. Adam mentioned about set timeouts, and then there is auto suspend. Those things, those configuration-based things are always there. The other important thing is understanding the query patterns, like subqueries versus CTs. Are you reusing the same CTs again and again, or rewriting it in the query structure and again? You may want to use one CT and use it again. So those kind of things needs to be done. Now, the other important thing, so Adam mentioned about SSD cache, the result cache. There is something called as query cache as well, which gets expired every 24 hours. So if you are using certain types of tables that needs to be that are being used frequently, like for example some kind of monitoring tables which you have to like ping every 1 minute or 30 seconds, you may want to put it in a query cache, and then see even if your warehouse gets restarted, then that caching is not kind of affected. So you have to think of all those aspects. The other aspects that we have specifically thought about is that how do we bring in the analysis based on the time series or the usage patterns? And that is where the we are you have to develop some specific kind of algorithms where you come up with the patterns of your usage, and based on that pattern decide on the optimized resource strategy. Now by resource I mean here mostly around the warehouses and kind of queries that you want to run on a particular warehouse. Even I'm talking about decision between multi-cluster versus single cluster, because at times we have seen that people are using multi-cluster, and if they move to single cluster, their costs are optimized as well. So you have to make that kind of balanced view perspective around multiple aspects.
Right. And then there are two ways to do this. Either, you get some consulting from experts like you both, or we actually develop something, which is readily available to some of the Snowflake users, uh, using which, like I'm basically specifically talking about Costnomics. Would you like to give us a sneak peek into Costnomics, how you are solving this cost governance or consumption governance problem, or helping them to optimize the costs? Would you like to give us a sneak peek into Costnomics?
Right. Before I start, the way Costnomics is planned, or I would say structured, we thought it as a three phases: the consumption governance. One is the planning, second one is monitoring, and the third one is taking action on that. Now, of course, with monitoring, alerting piece also comes into picture. But you have to start with planning. How much do you want to spend in a quarter? How much do you want to spend in a month? On a particular type of user, on a particular type of warehouse, or on a particular type of domain. So I'm talking about specifically using Snowflake tags, and then or kind of workload as well. And then from there you start monitoring those. By monitoring I mean not only look at it how much you are incurring, but also use some advanced analytics techniques, anomaly detection, forecasting to see where you are going to be, or which day is causing most of your costs to go high. So Costnomics is helping you observe that easily on a day-to-day basis, so you don't have to go and think about it or like apply advanced algorithms. Costnomics is going to help you with that. So with that, I'll just share my screen, and I'll get started from there. This is the main screen of Costnomics. Now, as you see, I talked about planning, monitoring, and then getting there to do some actions around. So that's how we have devised the menu. You start with budget planning. Now, with budget, you can plan it around the budget scope, which is like, are you going to plan your budget around this account? You are doing it for certain storage. It could be based on a period of annually, quarterly, or monthly, or you can do it your budget based on the tags as well. Now, once you do that, you keep on monitoring it. And if your budgets are not within the limited parameters, there is always an alert option that we have put in. So you can set the alerts on that. Now, with the budgets, you can always keep tracking. Like this is the our tracking dashboards, which talks about the budget forecast and versus actual on like last 15 days and going ahead 15 days. And then this talks about the monthly forecast, how your monthly forecast for a budget would look like. And this graph talks about the anomaly, like is there any anomalous value in there. So right now you don't see anything, but as you keep on using it over the period of time, if there is some anomaly in there, this graph is going to show that. Apart from that, budgeting, alerting and monitoring is something that we have put in. Now these alerts are starting with threshold alerts, then there is around the budgets, and around the budget tags. You can enable it, disable it, and then you can integrate it with the Slack also. So you can notify Slack users as well, and then you can integrate it with the email as well. So this budget right now, we have put a threshold alert budget, but in future we are bringing change alert, anomaly detection alert, and forecast alert as well. Now change alert is the delta alert, like between the day, if the delta is too high of the cost, then that means there is something happening around that. So that is what change alert is all about. Then anomaly detection, we understand it's all about anomaly. Forecast alert is all about if we see that next 2 months the budget is going to go beyond your estimated output, then you put an alert around that. So that's alerting and monitoring. The third thing that we have introduced is workload. Now this is something newly introduced features of ours. Now this workload monitoring is something that you put around the workload. Now that workload can be using the same warehouse, but that workload can be using a different warehouse. But you can always define a workload based on a user, based on a query tag, or based on a role. And then once you define those, you will be able, um, our backend engine is going to able to capture the cost around it and will showcase something like this on the dashboard for you. You can look into your top 5, top 10, all those things would be here. And then accordingly, the cost is going to be shown. And then the detail tables, like how much cost and all those things are here. Uh, in future, what we are trying to introduce over here is workloads based on query patterns, where we are going to look for specific query patterns in a text of query text, and then we are going to group it into a workload name, whatever workload name that you give, and around whatever workload tool, and then it is going to give you that. Now, since I'm talking about the workload tools, you can have integrated it with any type of workload tools that is using Snowflake, because ultimately those workload tools will be tying up around either role, users, some query tags, query comments, or some type of query text. So based on that, we will aggregate cost for you and showcase it here. And then on those costs, we are introducing alerting as well. So for workloads, you are going to set the budgets. And once you are able to set the budgets with the workload, you are going to have the alerts also enabled. So that's our plan. So right now, the workload monitoring is place. We are introducing alerting and budgeting for that. And ultimately, the recommendation piece is going to come around with that. Now, the other piece that I said is more about the fact is the monitoring piece. Now, this is one of the dashboards. This is around the billing, like it talks about how much of the credits is consumed, what is the total USD build. This is around the account, one account. And then what is the compute build? And then you can see different types of graphs around that. And of course, you can filter it based on tags, date, all those things are there. And then ultimately you can download the reports as well. Similarly, we have the recommendations. We have the yeah. So this is the recommendation piece. Now, in that recommendation, you will have so our recommendations are based on performance, resource consumption, configuration, usage, and billing analysis. Now, each of those recommendations will have a detailed a kind of report also associated with it, so that you will be able to see, okay, what is happening with my user over here, what is kind of queries that it is running. And then there is a recommendation that happens, like this is an opportunity to evaluate the expensive queries and take some action. Admin can take a look at the query profile and optimize there. Now we are introducing an automated part as well, which is where you are going to look into the query explain plan, and you are going to look into some of the query history parameters, and then going to do some advanced recommendations around that as well. The other thing is that what we have introduced here is the, as I said, some advanced kind of recommendation is around where optimization. Now we have started with compute, which is warehouse. Here we are showcasing overutilized warehouse, underutilized warehouse. Now, again, this is based on the time series analysis, which I just talked about a few minutes back. Now, one of the things that we have introduced in the overutilized is, like, if a warehouse is overutilized, what kind of action you can take. So this is like one of the actions, like you can always increase your max cluster count from 3 to 4 because there is a spillage happening. or you can actually create you can basically this recommendation is more about the fact that some of the your workload queries can be shifted to another warehouse size. So here we are not asking you to increase the cluster size. We are asking you to move or shift some of your workload to a different warehouse. So that kind of logic that we have introduced with this. So we are building this for queries as well, and we are building it for storage optimization as well. But warehouse optimization is live now, and similarly, the with the underutilized, most of the things are around auto suspend. I just talked about it, like double billing. So it recommends you the how to, like, this is a typical case, like auto suspend value from 30 seconds to 60 seconds, so that you can accommodate your query intervals which are very frequent and you don't want to like stop it. So those kind of things, and the recommendation happens with the underutilized options piece. And the last piece here is the forecast. Now the forecast right now is introduced at the budget level, which I showed you earlier. Now it has been introduced at the account level also. And then you can look into how much amount in future is left, and what is your unused amount, what is your uh, like total amount allocated for the year, how much of it has been used or how much of it has not been used. Now, with all these, in future, as I said, our focus is into bring in more of the recommendations, more of the advanced recommendation, the one that you see based on the time series of the user. And we are trying to bring in cost. So our entire focus is to strike a balance between performance and the cost, and to strike a balance from the wastage point of view. So of course, if you use it, there would be a cost, but we are trying to avoid the Snowflake cost wastage. And that is where our focus is.
I guess one kind of key question I've got, that I'm sure other people will have who are interested in this. Let's say, I'm looking after a data team at an organization, and I'm under pressure to reduce costs on my Snowflake account. I reach out to you guys because I'm interested in this product. What would the steps look like in your eyes to kind of bring that in terms of, I want to protect my corporate data assets? I'm assuming this is kind of looking at the operational metadata that Snowflake's logging in the background. So how would the deployment process look to give you the access to that securely? And how quickly would I be able to get recommendations off the historical data that's in there? And finally, would I need a consultant or some hours of a consultant alongside this to look at the recommendations, look at the visibility your dashboards are providing, and take action on that? So it'd be great if you could just talk about that kind of life cycle of how you would see it typically work.
We have built this entire thing with Snowflake private preview of the native apps. Now with the private preview, there are two versions that are available. Version 2, they are going to go live with, I would say by 1st of June. Now with via Snowflake Marketplace, you can subscribe to this app. And then from there, you can get started. Now by subscription, you just have to, like, based on one click, say that I want to install this app. And then all the stored procedures and other things would be available to you in your account. Now, as soon as that is available, there is a set of instructions which will ask you to do that. That is the prerequisite. It will hardly take like 10 to 15 minutes. And then once that is done, just have to run one stored procedure for us. And as soon as that is done, so we have seen it like for a very heavy client, it has taken like 30 minutes to run that. And once that is done and we enable you through our SaaS application here, then you will be able to see that. So once the installation is done, then after that, I would say that within 1 hour, you should be able to see that, the data here. Now, the second question that you talked about, do we need a consultant? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. That totally depends on the type of recommendations that we are trying to make. Like for example, we talked about like multi-cluster versus moving some of the workloads to single cluster warehouse. Now, we do certain types of calculations, and based on that we say that okay, multi-cluster is not going to be uh, uh, optimal usage of your cost, or I would say credits. uh, Better to move this workload to a new warehouse. Now there the consultant would come into picture on identifying the queries, and as you said that you help certain of some of your clients to do that. So there would we would require a consultant. The second thing is that areas where it would require is there are a lot of structural changes into the, like I talked about CTE versus subqueries, query restructuring that we are going to recommend. Now you would need either your Snowflake in-house Snowflake expert that is going to do that for you, or you are going to need a consultant to do that. But cost wise, I would say that if you are well versed with the tool, we are trying to make it less efficient, not efficient in the sense like from the user's perspective, but from the perspective of that you don't need like one consultant full hours, 8 hours every day to work with Costnomics. That is where we are trying, the entire problem that we are trying to help you with is that reduce your Snowflake wastage with less manual overhead.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. I guess it's a fast track, right? To give you visibility of where those pain points are, and then somebody can just pitch in, do what they need to do, and you're done, right?
I think that's about all I wanted to talk in this meeting. So before we close this formally, Manish, any closing comments with respect to Snowflake, for anything that you want to share for the community, our customers, as a last, closing comment?
Of course, I mean, there is no doubt about it that this is a great platform, and this is a game-changing platform where you don't have to be well versed with, like, you don't have to be a great programmer to help with this. If you have a sufficient Snowflake training, then you will be able to use this tool and achieve complex tasks as well. Now, one of the important thing, we talked about cost, we talked about performance, that you have to understand. Snowflake is bringing a lot of new features. Now, a few of them are going to be announced in the Snowflake Summit. But you have to keep an eye on more of the dev features, like the SDKs or the, so Anand, you know, we are talking to Snowflake research team as well. Now they are trying to bring in the entire dev experience. Now I'm talking about the full stack development perspective as well, to Snowflake Cloud itself, like with the introduction of Streamlit and all, but with that, like CI/CD, the change management, the artifacts movement from dev to prod environment. So all those aspects they are working on, and which is great. Like as I said, you don't have to like use plethora of other tools, and like if a new guy comes in your team, it's like 5 weeks of training or 10 weeks of training happening before he gets used to the platform. If you are well versed with Snowflake, you are able to do that, and that's where the future with Snowflake is. And I would suggest community to understand and keep an eye on those features, because as you move ahead, those features are going to help you migrate your existing workloads or existing tools towards those features, so that you focus on one piece, you focus on building your business logic, you focus on building your complex business logic, rather than focusing on changing the technology or moving to like uh, better technology and all. Snowflake would take care of it for you. One
Yeah.
last thing, since it's an era of generative AI, uh, I just want to say this. We are also trying to introduce generative AI with Costnomics. But I think as being a programmer, being a developer myself, what we need to understand is generative AI is on the recommendation space. It's a probabilistic science. It's not the exact science. It will help you achieve the exact science, but uh, what you need to understand as a programmer, you do an exact science. So generative AI is there to help you, but exact science is something that a human would be required to do it, and business logic would not work without the exact science. So Costnomics, we are trying to integrate, but you need to get to the exact level as a programmer using Costnomics if you are going to achieve that. So with generative AI, it's not that it is going to replace you, it is going to help you. But as I said, you may be able to achieve your task faster with that.
Okay. Thanks, Manish. Adam, closing comments from you.
Well, just to thank you guys for your time. Thanks, Manish, for going through the demo. I think it's a rapidly evolving tool in a rapidly evolving space, as you mentioned, and it's great. I'm sure it's great and very positive for everybody to hear that the more things you can do in Snowflake natively, like the CI/CD piece, the full development lifecycle, the better. The easier my job is then to help other clients get value from it. I guess, guys, if there's people out there watching this video, regardless of what social media channel it goes on to, we'll put a link down if they're interested and want to hear more about the product or go to the next step. We'll pop a link on there, right, Adnan, so they can reach out to you directly and find out more about the product if they're interested.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks, Manish.
Thank you.